media news.
Yeah.
And like a massive free agent moving from NFL Network and Fox to ESPN. Somehow Schrager did not have a home for the first night of the draft. And it's like, come on home, brother.
Please.
Ladies and gentlemen, Emmy Award winner, ESPN pundit, insider, and analyst, Peter Schrager.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go.
Let's go, Schrags. Let's go, brother.
With open arms. You know, the Motel 8's great. What I always tell, like, a good hotel situation, when you can park and then enter from the outside into your room, you know you're in a good spot. And I feel like that's what we're looking for at Green Bay. Little parking lot, put the key in from the outside, walk right in. I can't wait. Let's go.
That's a motel, brother, not a hotel. And motel, hotel, Holiday Inn. I think that's actually.
Say what?
Okay, Schrags. All right, happy to hear that. A little culture over there, Schrags. Like to know that that's possible. Here we are, 2 days out from the first round of the NFL draft. This is normally whenever you are pretty dialed in. You were saying some things this morning on Get Up about how there seems to be a lot of movement potentially for 2, 3, and 4, but not for quarterbacks, maybe. What are you expecting here at the top of this draft? Is everything kind of settled in your eyes, or is there still massive question marks out there, Schrags?
Not at all. I think everyone thinks it's going to be chalk and it's going to go Cam Ward number 1 to the Titans, and I believe that will happen. I've been told that teams have called the Titans and they have not entertained any offers, and they're set, and Cam Ward is expected to be the number 1 pick, barring something crazy happening over the next 48 hours. 2 is where it gets interesting. The same teams that have been calling the Titans are calling the Browns, and the Browns, unlike the Titans, are listening. And their phone lines are open. And the Giants, some calls have been made to. The same thing there. So every year you have GMs making phone calls, just trying to get a feel for it. But I could say with great certainty that both the Browns at 2 and the Giants at 3, phone lines are open, and they're not telling teams, no, we're set. Travis Hunter's our guy, or Abdul Carter's our guy. Both those teams, the door is still open, and they are listening to calls. Whether or not that's where they go or not, it's a different story, but it at least leads to some intrigue, and it might just not be chalk at the top of the draft.
Normally the calls up to the top end of the draft are for the quarterback position, but it sounds like that might not be the case this year. Tone has a question for you, Schrags.
Yeah, Schrags, let's talk about Shedeur, who is the most interesting man in the draft depending on where he goes. I can't remember the words you used this morning, but it was awesome. It was somewhere around the median, mean, mode, one of those things. But you said Shedeur anywhere from potentially 2, 3 to into the second round. ESPN Bet has him as the favorite to go to the Browns at plus 250. I know FanDuel has him the favorite to go to the Steelers. So no one knows where Shedeur's going. If he does get by 3, if he does get by 9 at the Saints, do you think he gets by the Steelers at 20?
Yeah, so 3 is where it all starts, and that's the word I used was delta, meaning the difference of change, and it can go anywhere from 3 to honestly the second round. And why do I say 3? Because the Giants have not closed the door on taking Shedeur Sanders. I know the Giants do have a fondness for Shedeur Sanders. And if you're going to take him at 15 or 18 or 19, if this is the quarterback of your future, there is a feeling of just take him at 3. Just take him where you have him. Don't get cute. Take him when you have him. If you like him, that's your guy. They obviously have been to his pro day. 13 different people from the organization came. They have been to multiple Colorado Buffalo games. They have been to practices. And not only did they have them in for a visit, they then took him out to dinner in New Jersey. And then last week, to just make sure one more time, they went out to Boulder again. The issue with this is that they've done the same exact work and put the same exact personnel behind Jackson Dart. They have sent everyone to the pro day at Jackson Dart. There are so many connections between Ole Miss and the Giants right now. If I could just go through them quickly, Joe Judge is one of the lead assistant coaches with Ole Miss. He's been there for a couple of years. He's boots on the ground. A lot of the same people from the Giants front office worked with Joe Judge. So if there's any conversation on Jackson Dart, they can have it there. Charlie Weiss's kid is calling the plays over there at Ole Miss. Well, Brian Daboll worked with Charlie Weiss, and they have a long relationship there. If they have any conversations to have, they can do it there. You add in Eli having a connection to Ole Miss. You add in the fact that Joe Shane has a kid who goes to Ole Miss. Like, there is a ton of connections between Jackson Dart and the Giants. So I'm not just saying because a lot of people went to the workout to Shedeur that's their guy. It could be as early as 3, or it could be one of these where Shedeur slips past the Saints at 9. And I'm saying 21 makes sense to the Steelers, or 20 to make sense to the Steelers.
Ooh.
Because I've heard that he and Mike Tomlin had a great meeting, and his conversation with Arthur Smith went great. But I'm not coming out right now and saying that's where it ends. He could slide past the Steelers, and it can go on till Friday night if that's the case.
Okay, so on that note, and I think Tomlin and Shedeur would be great together. I think from what we know about Shedeur, which is a lot because of all the behind-the-scenes stuff and documentary stuff, and we've seen him since high school, I think if he gets to a place that knows him, likes him, and accepts him, he's going to be a guy. But if he goes to a place that, like, isn't all in on Shedeur, it might be another one of those stories where it's like, is this the right fit, yada, yada, yada. Now, on the quarterback, first-round quarterback discussion, D-Butt has a question for you, Shrek.
Yeah, and much like Kuiper, I'm very high on Shedeur as well. And you talked about him possibly being in play at 3. I'm sure that'll impact this number. Where are you at on the over-under in the first round with the quarterbacks? I think it's at 2.5 right now. The tone said, and obviously if Shedeur goes earlier, that'll open that up. But where are you at with that number?
Yeah, look, I think for sure Cam Ward goes 1. I think if I'm looking at the way I think at the end of the first round, and I'm talking from like 26 at the Rams to 32 at the Eagles, if you're the Browns, you're the Saints, you're the Steelers, and you didn't take them in the first go-around, or you're the Giants, those teams will be looking to trade back. I look at the Rams at 26, like that is classic Les Snead. Here, someone come back, give us another extra pick, we'll move back, you come and get him. So long story short, I do think Cam Ward is 1. I do think Shedeur goes, and then I think Jackson Dart goes. I'm going to say 3 with a possibility of 4 if someone wants to sneak in at like the last 2 picks to get a Milroe or a Tyler Shough.
It just feels like 2.5 quarterback position nowadays. Even if somebody doesn't really, well, let's try and see if we can hit. That feels like a good bet, but could be a wild draft night. AJ has a question for you about a non-quarterback. Let's talk defense, shall we?
Yeah, Shregs, what about Mason Graham, the big D tackle out of Michigan? What do you think the range is where he could be? I've heard if he's there at 6, the Raiders may take a look at bringing him in. Obviously, try to bolster that interior defensive line, but where do you think the range of where he could go?
He's in that next tier, right? So you've got Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter as defensive players. Then there's this group, and the group is Mason Graham, who is your 3 technique worker inside interior lineman. And then you got Jalen Walker, who is this stud pass rusher who's a coach's son and is interviewing out of this world out of Georgia. And then you've got the corner out of Texas, Barron. So you've got that group of next 3 if you're looking for a defensive player. If I was to target Mason Graham, I would say 5 is the earliest to Jacksonville, but I'd be surprised. All right. And then I would say the back end is probably 11 to the Niners would be like the bookend. So he's going somewhere in that 5 to 11 range. My mock draft, I've got him going 9 to the Saints, but that could easily be 8 to the Panthers or 11 to the Niners.
Have you put out your final mock draft yet?
No, and I'm excited to share that. I'm going to put it out tomorrow morning. We're going to talk about it on Get Up. We're going to talk about it on SportsCenter and NFL Live. But I've been working on this thing, Pat, for probably since you got to Vegas for WrestleMania, sitting on the couch. I'm watching you guys. I'm watching the NBA playoffs, and I'm texting every GM, and I'm getting all the intel I can. And I haven't submitted it yet. Things change. But right now I feel pretty good with where I've got these guys and where in the range they're going to be. I can't pinpoint every team, but I feel like I've got the right 32 guys who are probably going to go in the first round.
We're talking to Peter Schrager, currently at an airport, heading to Green Bay, Wisconsin for the draft. Obviously, this is his thing. He's releasing his mock draft tomorrow morning. That'll be something the entire industry will be looking at. We cannot wait to see you in Green Bay, Wisconsin. On that mock draft, Connor has a question for you.
Yeah, Shregs, it feels like the Patriots at 4 is kind of where the unknown of the entire draft starts. You know, the 1, 2, 3 seems to be set. Who knows what teams or what order that will be in, but it really does feel as though number 4 is kind of where the toss-up begins. Will Campbell being a huge favorite today makes me think there's no chance he's going to go number 4 because that's what this week's all about. I believe you talked about at 2 or 3 teams were calling up, of course, for Carter and Hunter, but also Ginty getting a big push right now. Is that somebody who's going to be probably in it for New England at 4, or do you see New England doing kind of, hey, we need a left tackle, we need a pass rusher, even though their GM or pseudo GM Elliott Wolf, even though Mike Vrabel is obviously kind of running the entire show, has said before, like, hey, we're in a spot where we can take best available, and it sounds as though best available would be Ginty at 4.
It's interesting. So, Will Campbell, you look at him, he's everything, you like in a player, but is he a blue chip prospect? He's not Orlando Pace coming out of college. He's not Jonathan Ogden. I'm not sure he's Joe Alt or Rashawn Slater or any of these recent guys either. There's obviously questions about his arm length and people can roll their eyes, but is he a better offensive guard than offensive tackle? They're real questions. So that to me tells me there's no way this is a slam dunk. I also know that they've been making calls on Armand Membu in the last few days, and just to make sure what they know everything about him as another offensive tackle option. And then you nailed it. Genti, there's three great players in this draft coming out of college. Look, all these guys can end up being awesome players, but there are three great players. There's Abdul Carter, there's Travis Hunter, and then there's Ashton Genti. And if you're telling me, well, this is a team that's already got Saquon Barkley, or this is a team that's already got another star running back, well, then I'd say, okay, you don't take Ashton Genti at 4th overall. Ramondre Stevenson is a fine running back, but Ashton Gentry completely changes this Patriots offense. So I would not close the door on Membu. I would not close the door on Campbell, and I would not close the door on Ashton Gentry. I'd also add this. I've been doing this a long time. Elliott Wolf, been in the league a long time. The number one overall pick that I've ever been completely duped on was a few years back, and I had to do a mock draft, and I made a million calls, and even within their organization, and I submitted to, at the time, FoxSports.com. I was like, Sam Darnold's going number 1 to Cleveland. Sam Darnold is the Cleveland Browns quarterback. I did that around Wednesday afternoon. I felt really confident on it. Checked around with my Cleveland guys, still felt really confident on it. The pick was made, and the announcement from one Roger Goodell was Baker Mayfield. Do you know who was in that front office? Elliott Wolf was number 2 in that front office. So I don't trust anything from the Patriots and what we're hearing from the Patriots. I think Elliott Wolf gets a kick out of having everyone zig, and then they zag, and they say, well, we didn't say anything. You guys made that assumption. So I think it's wide open, and I'm not just trying to spike ratings here in New England or anything. I honestly think anyone who thinks they know the Patriots are doing it 4 and saying it's a slam dunk, they're full of it, because Elliott Wolf ain't talking, and I don't think Vrabel is either.
Yeah, Vrabel, I don't think is a stranger to telling the media to go scram as well. Yeah. So should be a fun time for the Patriots fans. What if you guys just trade out? What if you just trade out? Especially if people are trying to get to 2 and 3. I assume 4 is going to be an active spot as well. Anything is possible with this draft. Feels like that's real. Now, in the past, there's been some players that we know get moved on draft day. Ty has a question for you, Schrags.
Yeah, Schrags, speaking of the Patriots, there's been a little smoke around, A.J. Brown potentially getting traded there to reunite with Vrabel. We haven't really heard anything from Trey Hendrickson since everything kind of went sideways after Katie Blackburn's comments at the winter meetings or, the owners' meetings. I know that a lot of this stuff might be like day of and you don't really have any of it yet, but are you hearing anything about like trades percolating outside of teams, making an early selection and then moving back into the like kind of bookend of the first round?
I'm going to shoot you straight. This is interesting because, actually Hendrickson, you guys were great with Hendrickson. That was the only time I've seen him speak publicly, and I thought he was awesome with you guys. But, this is the kind of stuff, candidly, this stuff won't be popping up today. And I know that seems like I'm taking that's going to be a Thursday situation because they'll get the structure of a deal and they'll know what's going on. But based on what Cincinnati does at 17, look, if they take Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M at 17, that suddenly makes Trey Hendrickson a lot more, easy to get rid of and say, okay, well, we can at least go to bed knowing we've got a guy that we just drafted who's going to make way less that we have the utmost thoughts for. For the Patriots, let's get through the draft. Let's get through night 1, but let's get through night 2 and let's see what wide receivers they've selected or what offensive weapons they've selected before we start making those trades. So I have done this a long time. You never see the veteran player traded a day before or that deal made until the day of, and it's usually after the pick was already selected.
Okay, last question here, Schrags, for you before you get on a plane. What airport are you at right there? Seems active.
I'm at LaGuardia. I'm telling you, LaGuardia has been completely redone. This used to be the hellhole of the earth, and right now it's lovely. I feel like I'm on a luxury liner. This is great.
It does look very nice. Is that an international wing? Because
No, that's
domestic flights. Because most of these airports, the international wings, they soup up.
Oh yeah.
So whenever people come to America, look how nice our shit is, and then you go down escalator to the domestic side, and it's like picking actual shit off the ground.
Fist fighting.
The airports haven't been updated in a long time. That looks like a beautiful place. And look at the sky behind.
Dude, I'm thinking I'm thinking maybe taking a little trip here on a random Tuesday or Wednesday, just spending a couple hours hanging at the airport. It's beautiful.
Yeah, terminal. Hang out at the terminal. Maybe live there. Okay, last question.
Get that little massage at that little relaxed place they have. It'd be great. A little spa day.
Oh, the food too. Maybe Sparrow Pizza.
Genuine New York slice.
God, it'd be so good. All right, last draft question here from D-Bud.
Trey, you just mentioned wideouts. I know outside after Travis Hunter, I don't really see that guy. And last year he had Marvin Harrison Jr., Neighbors, Rome right at the top. We knew they were going. How do you see the wide receivers coming off the board after Travis?
The most polarizing prospect in this draft outside of Shedeur Sanders is Ted McMillan, because I have teams telling me he wouldn't escape the top 5 if it was up to us. The production that he had at Arizona and what he brings as a 6'4" wide receiver with incredible hands and just a dominant. This guy looks like Calvin Johnson or Mike Evans on a good day. But the tape from 2024 wasn't great. There were plays where he took off. The things he said publicly, he's a volleyball player. There's questions whether he loves football. All that stuff can play tricks with an NFL front office, especially if it's a young GM putting their name and sticking their name on something. So Ted McMillan, as I said, Shedeur can go like 3 to 34. I think Ted McMillan could go anywhere from like 5 to 19. That's how big his delta is. But it's a great question. He's the number 1 guy, probably. And then Matthew Golden's the burner that you get out of Texas, who is what he is. He's an Xavier-worthy type, And then Abuka's everyone's favorite player in the world. AJ will like this. He's literally, everyone wants him to marry their daughter. He's that much of a great guy. The question is, where's the upside there? He's probably a first-round pick as well.
Shout out to Ohio State, creating, absolute gentlemen over there.
That's right.